So, so you sent me this over. So this is a bunch of quadratic equations. So before I start working some problems, I want you to understand what we're looking at. And I know sometimes these books don't really do a good job in explaining what we're looking at and what they're saying. So let me help you out real quick. So it says in example A, right? It says graph the quadratic function y equals x squared minus x minus 12, right? What's a quadratic function? Any function with x squared. That makes it quadratic. That's all that means. Any function with an x squared, that's a quadratic function, okay? Cool. So there's 3 steps to doing this, right? So first, we need to find an axis of symmetry. What is an axis of symmetry? If we go down, right? First, what is it, right? It's saying that our axis of symmetry is 0.5, right? So if you see this right here, right? This x right here, this is our point. This is our axis of symmetry. That means this line here that I'm going upwards of 0.5, all of that is our axis of symmetry. When x is 0.5, that means everything to the left of this line is even to what's right of the line, right? So all the way up here is our axis of symmetry. That means from the left side of here is equal, from the right side of here is equal. Okay? That's all that means. So to find the axis of symmetry, we would use this. Determine the axis of symmetry by using the formula x equals negative b over 2a. Now, what is a? What is b? Okay, so let me explain what everything is right here. A is the number in front of the first number, right? In front of the first x, right? That would be a, right? B would be the number in front of the second x, right? So that's called a coefficient. So being that there's no number in front, we can assume that this is a 1, right? So a is 1, and the number in front of this one, there's no number. So we can assume that this is also a 1, a negative 1, because it's minus, right? So to get that, we would do negative 1, right, over 2 times 1, right? See, our b is negative 1 here, right? And we have our 1 of, so we have 2 times our 1, which is this, right? So we have negative 1 over 2. Don't forget this negative right here, right? So 2 negatives cancel out, and you get a positive 1/2. 1/2 is just 0.5, right? So that's our axis of symmetry. Step 2 would be to find the vertex. What is a vertex? A vertex is basically the point in which you start to draw your graph, right? So let's look down here, right? You see this point right here? Notice how this is at the very bottom of our graph, right? It starts from this point and it goes outward up here and outward up here. So this is the very starting point of our graph, okay? So don't get confused by what the words are. The vertex is the starting point of your graph, okay? All right, so let's move on. So to get that, all we would have to do is find the find the y coordinate, right? Because we already know the x. The x is the axis of symmetry, right? Which is 0.5. So now that we know what x is, we would plug it into our equation. So wherever you see x, we would plug in 0.5. So you have 0.5 squared, 0.25, minus 0.5 minus 12, right? So solve that up, and you ended up with negative 12.25 as your vertex. and it's right here, right? That's the starting point of our graph. Step 4, find our zeros. A quadratic equation will always have 2 zeros. That means the graph will always cross a point where it's on the left side and the right side, right here, right? You see, notice these two? It's going to always have 2 sides because it's going to be going up into infinity from both sides. Now, so to get this, we would factor. Remember how we factored before, right? So we would factor by using our equation of x squared minus x minus 12 equals 0, right? That means we have to find two equations that if you added those up in the middle, it'll give you a -1. But if we multiply the outsides, we would get a 12, right? So what 2 numbers can you multiply to give you 12, but you can add up and give you -1? Those 2 numbers is -4 and 3, right? Remember, first, outside, inside, last. So first, 1, you have this x right here, this x right here, x squared, right? Outside, x times 3 is a positive 3x. Inside, -4 times x is a -4x. Last, we have -4 plus times 3, that is -12. So the inside of -4 plus 3 would give you just -x. So once we get those two, all we would do is just solve for x, right? X minus 4, you add those 4 right here, x equals 4, right? X plus 3, you subtract that 3 here, you got a -3. And that's it. All you would do is plot your vertex, plot your zeros, and draw your point all the way through. Now, I know it sounds confusing because you can't really see me do it, but so we're going to do one together on the board, and I want you to finish the next 2, right? Because I just want you to just get used to doing things using that formulas that they're giving you, okay? So let's do some on the board. So let's start with the first one, right? This is what we got. We got x squared minus 2x minus 8. Step 1, let's find the axis of symmetry. That formula, remember, axis of symmetry is always negative b over 2a. Just like this, right? So our a that's nothing right here. So this is assumed to be a 1. Here's a, right? A equals 1. And right here, this is our b. That's a -2, right? So our b is -2. So now let's just plug it into our formula, right? So I like to do it this way so we can keep our negatives separate, right? So our b is -2, so we're going to put that up here. And we're going to do 2 times a, which is 1. So let's solve that real quick. 2 times 1 is 2. So now we have -2 over 2, right? The opposite of 2 over 2 is 1. The opposite of positive 1 is -1. So, sorry, don't forget your x's. So, our axis of symmetry is positive 1, right? Because 2 over 2 equals 1. And the opposite of positive 1 is -1. So our axis of symmetry is 1. Now, we have, this is our, let me just label this axis of symmetry. Now let's find the vertex. So we have our x. To find the vertex, which is our bottom point of our our equation, right? So we would just plug this in to wherever we see x. So in our equation, x squared, replace the x with 1. So that's 1 squared minus 2 times 1 minus 8. Right? 1 squared is 1 minus 2 times 1. That's 2 minus 8. So now we just, and this is all y equals. Y equals, sorry. So 1 minus 2 plus negative, that's negative 1 minus 8 plus minus, that's negative 9. Right? Y equals negative 9. So our vertex is, excuse me, our vertex would be our axis of symmetry, which is 1, and we figured out our y is 9. This is the vertex. Now I want you to remember these numbers, right? So vertex is 1, 9, right? So I'm going to erase because I wrote a little bit too much, and then we're going to do something else, right? So we got our vertex. I'll write it over here. Keep in mind our vertex is 1, 9. Alright? Now, the next step is to find our zeros, right? Our equation was x squared minus 2x minus 8, right? We have to find the zeros, right? Y equals, sorry, I gotta remember to write that. Remember, we just got to factor, right? So that means y will equal, we need to figure out our x-intercepts. That means y equals 0, right? So now we should factor. So we're going to find, we're going to put our parentheses. So we have two polynomials, right? It's just basically two equations with 1x, right? Two polynomials. So we need to find the number in the middle, right? That if we multiply that together, will give us negative 8. But if we added it together, it'll give us negative 2, right? So remember, FOIL is first. Always remember FOIL. First, outside, inside, last. Okay? So that's what you do to get this, right? So think about it. What two numbers times itself can get you 8? Well, let's think about it. We have 1 times 8, 2 times 4. Yep, 2 times 4. But 2 times 4 is 8. But what can give us a negative 8? But if we added those together, can give us a negative 2. So let's do a negative 4 times a positive 2, right? Now, we always check our work. So think about what we just did. So we figured out the two factors for this, right? 4 times 2 is 8, but a negative 4 plus a positive 2 will give us a negative 2x, and I'll show you why. So let's check our work. First, which is x squared, right? Outside, x times 2, that's 2x, positive 2x. Inside, negative 4x. Negative 4 times x is a minus 4x, remember? And last, the last is 4 times 2. Negative 4 times 2, that's a negative 8, right? And we add, So we do these two in the middle, right? So it's a positive 2x minus 4x plus negative, and that's a negative 2x. So we did it perfectly, right? See? We got back to our original problem. So this is correct. You don't have to do that check every time, but I always do so just to make sure I'm doing the right stuff, right? So we got our two polynomials. X minus 4 equals 0, and we have x plus 2 equals 0. That's what we're doing. We're finding these two equations so we can get our zeros, right? So now all we have to do is solve for x, right? Plus 4, x equals 4. That's our first zero. Minus 2, x equals negative 2. That's our second zero, right? So our zeros, let's write it off to the side. Our first one is 4, 0. Our second one is negative 2, 0, right? Because y is 0 in both of these, right? I want you to keep that in mind. Okay, so our vertex is 1, negative 9. So let's plot 1, negative 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is negative 9 here, right? And this is a positive 9. So let's plot our vertex. Our vertex is 1, negative 9. So that'll be somewhere around here, right? This is 1, negative 9, right? Axis of symmetry is x, where x equals 1, so it's this, right? See? This is known as our axis of symmetry, right? So on both, so the values on the left side and right side is equal, right? Of this dotted line. So remember, the vertex is the starting point of our graph, right? So now we would just graph our zeros. We have a 4, 0, which is right here. And we have a negative 2, 0, which is right here, right? So we're just gonna go out from here like this, and then you're gonna go up through this. Simple, right? So our zeros gives us our two plots. So axis of symmetry, which is a positive 1, where x equals 1, right? And you would just, all right, let's do the second one. So we have y equals 4x minus x squared. All right. So let's not get it confused. We want to write our quadratic formulas the same way. So this form, they tried to trick you, but don't let it confuse you, right? Let's write it a different way. Let's write it just like this. Y equals negative x squared minus 4x. Plus 4x, I'm sorry. All we did was move these around. You want your quadratic, you want your cube to be first in everything, okay? So that we can follow the formula correctly. This is the way it needs to be written, okay? So now, this is our formula, negative x squared plus 4x. All we did was move the negative x squared to the beginning, and then we moved our 4x to the back by just adding it, right? So now we have to find the axis of symmetry. And we know the axis of symmetry is what? Negative b over 2a. Just like that, right? So what's our a is what? It's negative 1, right? See? Our b would be the number 4, right? So let's write it like this. So let's keep our negative on the outside. So our b is 4, over 2 times, what is our A? -1, right? So, and this is x equals, right? So let's keep going down the line, right? Let's solve for inside here. So we have 4, 2 times -1 is -2, right? You see? So all we're doing is solving within the formula, right? So let's keep going. So this is x equals, looking at it, -4 divided by -2 would be a -2, right? So -2, right? And we have a negative on the outside of that, so what's the opposite of that? A +2. So our axis of symmetry is 2, right? X equals 2. It's the axis of symmetry. So what do we got to do? We have to plug. So for step 2, what do we have to do? We always plug our x into our formula to find the y, so we can have our vertex. So now we're solving for the vertex. So we're going to do y equals, wherever we see x, we're going to replace it with the number 2. So minus 2x squared. Wait, sorry. Minus 2 minus 2 squared plus 4 times 2. Right? So what's -2 squared? -2 squared is just 4. Right? Do it like that, right? -2 squared is just 4, right? 4 times 2 is 8. Y is 12. So our vertex is just our x and our y, right? So our x was a +2, right? And our y was a 12. So that's our first 2 steps. So let's write our vertex on the side so we can know where it is. Our vertex, and let's write it correctly so I don't get it wrong. That's 2 and the 12 here, right? That's our vertex. So now we have to find our zeros. Now we have a -x squared plus 4, right? So when we're finding the 0, y is going to be 0, and we're finding the x-intercepts, right? So we have a -x squared plus 4x, like this, right? So each one of these is being multiplied by x. So we're going to factor out an x, and we're going to end up with -x plus 4, right? We only factored out an x. So this is what we left off with. So 0 equals, we factor out an x because both of these are being multiplied by an x, right? X squared is just x times x. And 4x is 4 times x. So they're both being multiplied by x. We factor one out, right? So now we have an x equals 0, right? That's this right here. And the second portion, we have a -x plus 4 equals 0. So -4 minus 4 minus 4, -x equals -4. But we gotta get rid of this negative, right? So multiply that by divide that by -1, -1. So x equals 4. So one of our zeros is 0, 0, because remember, y is 0, right? 0, 0. Another one of them is 4, 0. Just like that, right? So now we have our vertex of 212, and our 2 zeros is 0, 0, and 1 is 4, 0, like that. Okay, so first let's find the vertex. First, but let me show you something. Did you notice something different about our problem that we didn't have on the first one? If we would look, right, we rewrite our problem like this, right? Negative x squared plus 4. I want you to notice that negative right here. Remember when you see a negative in front of an x squared, that means that it's upside down. That's it's a reflection, or you're flipping it. So instead of having a graph that looks like this, when this is x squared, right? If we have a negative x squared, our parabola would look like this. So positive x squared, it looks like it's upward facing. Negative x squared is downward, like that, right? So being that we have a negative x squared, it'll be facing downward. So let's graph our vertex first. We have a 2 and a 12. So we're going to do here, right? That's where we start. Vertex is where we start our graph, right? We're going to plot our points. We have one is 0, 0, and another is 4, 0, like this. So remember, it goes through the points like in a circle, like this, right? So plot our zeros, plot our origin. Here's the axis of symmetry. So simple as that. If you have any questions, please refer back to the video, or you can give me a call, man, anytime.